Today, we shall be looking at definition and scope of economics for SHS 1. It is my privilege to welcome you to this lesson once again. By the end of the lesson, you will be able to explain some basic economic terms. And secondly, define economics. And lastly, explain the concepts of scarcity, choice, scale of preference, and opportunity cost. Come with me as we go through the lesson. Now, economics as a subject makes use of different languages, has its unique language that must be clearly understood by every economic student for better understanding and appreciation of the subject. And therefore, as a starter, it is very necessary that we go through these terms. And among these terms are means. Now, when we talk about means, they are the inputs or resources used in the production of goods and services to satisfy human wants. So we want to emphasize the inputs or resources that are used in the production of goods and services to satisfy human wants. Now, you remember back in JHS, you learned about factors of production. And that is what we are talking about here. Good. They are the land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurship. Good. Now, we could also talk about goods. Goods are tangible objects that are needed by man to satisfy their wants. Now, for every want of an individual to be satisfied, the individual needs goods to satisfy these wants. And examples of goods are food, clothing, television set, shoes. You could add to the list. Good. These are tangible objects that are needed to satisfy the wants of individuals. Now, we could also, in talking about goods, goods could be free goods or economic goods. So we could explain free goods, and these are those goods that exist in abundant quantities that people do not have to pay before they can use them. Now, we are saying that for free goods, they exist in abundant quantities. They are more than how much is needed of them. And for that matter, individuals do not have to pay before they can use them. Now we can talk about air, examples, sunshine, seawater. Now these examples that have been mentioned here, you could realize that how much we need of them, they are abundant, in supply, than how much we need of them. Then in that case, we could also talk about economic goods. For economic goods, they are those goods that are limited in supply. So let's emphasize they are limited in supply or scarce. And therefore, one has to pay a price to get them. Unlike free goods, which are in abundant quantities, that people don't need to pay before they use them. For economic goods, they are limited in supply and they are scarce. That's a striking feature of economic goods. And before any individual could use them, you have to pay a price to get them. We could have examples like clothing. You can't get it for free. You need to pay a price to have them. Food, mobile phones, and so on and so forth. Good. We could also talk about services. as different from goods. And these are intangible items, I'm emphasizing, that are consumed to satisfy human wants. So we are saying whilst goods are tangible items needed to satisfy human wants, those intangible items that are needed to satisfy human wants are services. They could be professional services, commercial services, and so on and so forth. And examples are economics lessons like you are enjoying. It's a service. Medical care, entertainment, church service, and so on and so forth. Good. Again, we could talk about needs. Now, they are those goods that are basic necessities for life or survival. Once again, let's emphasize that those goods that are basic necessities for life and survival. Now that means that for needs, we cannot do without them. We need them for basic survival, for life. And examples are food, shelter, clothing, and so on and so forth. Good. Now, having known what needs are, it's very important we distinguish wants also from needs, because sometimes we use them interchangeably. Good. But for the sake of our lesson in economics, we need to distinguish between needs and wants. And wants are the goods and services that are not basically essential to life, but are needed to improve life. So we are saying for wants, they are not necessarily essential to life, but they are needed to improve life. Unlike food, shelter, and clothing, which when one does not get, cannot survive. For wants, they are needed to improve life. And we can talk about mobile phone, television set, watches, and so on and so forth. You could add to the list. That's good. Now, in looking at this, let's now move into some definitions of economics as given by different economics. Good. And the earliest definition of economics, some were given by, we have Adam Smith. Adam Smith, being referred to as the father of economics, defined economics as an inquiry into the nature and causes of wealth of nations. An inquiry into the nature and causes of wealth of nations. And to Adam Smith, he's saying that economics is about how nations acquire wealth, that is, the stock of goods and services available in an economy or in a country at any point in time. How nations acquire them, the nature of goods and services they produce, and what account for the volume of goods and services produced by countries. To Adam Smith, in doing that, we are talking about economics. Good. We could also look at Alfred Marshall's definition of economics. And to him, he defines economics as the study of mankind in the ordinary business of life. Alfred Marshall also talks about the fact that economics studies human beings, in other words, mankind, and also how man goes about their activities towards production of goods and services. So, this earliest definition by Adam Smith as well as Marshall emphasizes or looks at economics from the point of view of wealth, that is the stock of goods and services available in a society at any point in time. Good. Now, let's look at modern definition of economics. And there are quite a lot of them. I will employ that or ask that you read other definitions given by some other economics, but we are focusing on quite a few of them. And we shall look at modern definition of economics as given by Professor Samuelson Paul. And to him, he defines economics as the study of how men and society choose, with or without the use of money, to employ scarce productive resources which could have alternative uses to produce various commodities for consumption now and in the future. So when you look at the entirety of Paul Samuelson's definition, he is talking about how society uses scarce productive resources, he emphasizes, which have alternative use to produce goods. For what purpose? For consumption. For consumption now or for consumption in the future. To him, economics is also about that. Now let's turn our attention now to Lionel Robinson's definition of economics, and we shall be dwelling on this definition to elaborate it more. Good. So to Lionel Robbins, economics is the science which studies human behavior as a relationship between ends and scarce means which have alternative uses. So to Lionel Robbins, he's saying that from his definition that economics is a science subject. Now, how many of us knew way back in JHS that among the science subjects, economics is one? He is telling us today economics is a science subject from his definition. And from the definition, he is also telling us that this science subject, which is economics, studies human behavior. We need to take a look at that, studies human behavior. Good. Thirdly, he pointed out that human beings have ends or wants. Human beings have ends or wants. Ends or wants. And these ends or wants are numerous or unlimited. Good. Definitely. The thing that you need, the thing that I need, you can imagine, are uncountable. These are the ends or wants that we defined. And again, he pointed out that the means or resources that are needed to satisfy numerous wants are scarce. Good. They are in limited quantities. He pointed out that the means or resources have alternative or different uses. So for individual who has got his money or his income, you could use it in different ways. You could use it to buy a phone. You could use it to buy an economics textbook. You could use it for different purposes. That is it, what he mentioned. Good. Now, he emphasized in his definition that economics is a science, and we need to look at why economics is a science. Good. Now, economics is a science subject because it adopts or uses scientific methods or approaches to analyze economic issues or problems so as to find solutions to them. So among the science subjects like physics, chemistry, biology, mathematics, and so on and so forth, Lionel Robbins tells us that economics is also a science. The reason is that it adopts or uses scientific methods to solve economic issues, to find solutions to them. Good. Again, it is a science because it has its own laws. Now, as we move further, you will see there are laws that are peculiar to the studies of economics, which are not used in any other subject. Economics has its own laws. So these two reasons for the fact that it uses scientific methods to solve economic problems and for the fact that it has its own laws makes economics a science. Now let's move further to elaborate on the scientific methods. So among the scientific methods or approaches are identification of a problem. Now, in the sciences, before they could conduct investigations to find solutions, there should first of all be a problem. And in economics too, an economic problem could be, why do people buy more of a particular commodity? Let's take, for instance, phone. When the price of probably Samsung phone falls, why do they buy more? Now, this is a problem that has been set for which investigation must be conducted. So when a problem has been identified, there is a need for formulation of hypothesis. When we talk of hypothesis, it is an intelligent guess. Intelligent guess. Now, it serves as a roadmap in our investigation. So, how helpful it is that in our investigation, when we are going wayward, the hypothesis serves as a guide to us. Like, so, when hypothesis is formulated, there's the need for the collection of data. So, how do people behave when the price of Samsung phone rises? Will they buy more? Will they buy less? Sometimes saying they will buy more, they will buy less, you are hypothesizing. It could be correct or wrong, not until it has been subjected to verification. So to do that, we collect data on the problem that has arisen. And among the tools that could be employed in the collection of data, we could use interviews, we could use observation, we could use the administration of questionnaire to gather data. Good. And when data has been collected on the problem that has been set, now the data needs to be organized and analyzed in such a way to give meaning to it. So the data that has been collected on the problem from the respondents as to whether they will buy more of a commodity when price rises or it falls will be organized. When it has been organized, it will follow a pattern. Good. So the organization will, at the end of the day, analysis will tell us that more of consumers say that when the price of Samsung phone falls, they will buy more or otherwise. So the organization analysis reveals that. Now, when data is analyzed, now it is used for generalization and formulation of hypotheses. Now, for the analysis, we could realize a pattern, and the pattern will tell us that at the end of the day, based on the data collected, more consumers say that when the price of Samsung phone falls, they'll buy more. That's generalization. Even though it isn't all consumers who respond that way, some would take the otherwise, but then because majority of people are responding that when price falls, they'll buy more of a commodity, we could generalize to say that consumers will buy more of a Samsung phone when the price of it falls. Now, when generalizations are made, theories are formulated. Some of these theories, as we shall see in our second year analysis of economics, we have the price theory, theory of consumer behavior, we have theory of production, among other theories. Good. Now, when theories are formulated, these theories must be tested with new data over time. When it is tested with new data over time improving, imagine we collected data on Kumasi girls, students, or people in Ashanti region as to how they respond to changes in the price of Samsung. And they told us that when the price of Samsung phone falls, we shall buy more. Sometimes we need to go further to collect data on the same problem with different respondents with the same characteristics. Probably we go to Greater Accra region, and when data is collected on the same problem and the same response by generalization is given, then it becomes a law. So when data is tested with new a problem is tested with new data over time and it is proven, it becomes a law. Among some of the laws in economics, we have the law of demand, the law of supply, among others. We shall look at that in our further analysis. Good. Now, it becomes a law. And when these laws are made, they could be used for predictions and conclusions. Now, the pattern here is that we collected data on a category of individuals, they gave us this response. We collected data on another individuals of the same characteristics, they gave us the same response, and for that matter, we could predict that if we are to go to a third category of individuals to collect data on the same problem, there's a higher tendency and likelihood that they are going to give us the same response. That's prediction. Good. And therefore, we could conclude that based upon the prediction, we could conclude from the analysis or the situation that we have considered on the changes in the price of Samsung phone, conclude that when the price of Samsung phone rises, consumers will buy less. And when the price of Samsung phone falls, they'll buy more. That's conclusion. Good. And we come to realize that even though economics are those scientific processes, economics is not an exact science or physical science like the chemistry, physics, and biology, who undertakes controlled experiments in the laboratory to come out with, solution to their problem. But economics deals with human behavior, which cannot be wholly predictable. So the whole world becomes the laboratory within which economic investigations are conducted. And therefore, because human behavior cannot be predicted, we say economics, though it's a science, it is not like the physics, chemistry, biology, which are exact science, but then economics is a soft or social science. Good. Now, let's look at why economics is a social science discipline. And why I always ask this question. So why economics is a social science discipline or subject, it is because it studies human behavior. Let's underline that. It studies human behavior, which cannot be wholly predictable. It studies human behavior, which cannot be wholly predictable. So for the fact that economic studies human behavior, which cannot be wholly predictable, makes it a social science. Good. Now let's look at some introductory economic concepts over here, sharply. Now among these concepts, we have scarcity. From Lionel Robinson's definition, he said economics is science which studies human behavior as a relationship between ends and scarce means. We looked at that when we're looking at what Lionel Robinson pointed out. So scarcity is a fundamental problem of economics. And what is scarcity? Scarcity means that resources are limited in supply. Resources are limited in supply relative to wants or relative to the demand for them. Good. So the limitedness of resources in relation to the demand for them is what is referred to as scarcity. Good. Now, scarcity of resources is a fundamental problem in the study of economics. Had it not been this problem, economics, there wouldn't be any need to economize. So it is a fundamental problem of economics. Good. It is individuals being economic agents, which are individuals, firms, and government. These three major economic agents are faced with the problem of scarcity. Individuals are faced with scarcity of resources. Your income cannot afford the numerous or countless unlimited wants. To firms, their resources cannot produce all manner of goods and services. Government resources cannot produce all manner of goods and services government aims at producing to satisfy or improve the welfare of the citizens. So it becomes a fundamental problem in economics. Good. Now, the existence of scarcity calls for the making of choices. Once it exists, resources are scarce in relation to unlimited ones, we need to make choices over here. And what are choices? Choice refers to the act of selecting from among alternatives. The act of selecting from among alternatives. Now, you have numerous ones to satisfy, but the resource you have at your disposal is limited or scarce. Therefore, you can't get all your wants satisfied. You need to make choices to use the limited resources to satisfy some of the wants and leave the others. Good. So, choice is also the act of deciding which ones to satisfy and which ones to be left unsatisfied. So you choose which ones to use your limited resource to satisfy and which ones to leave unsatisfied. You are making a choice there. Good. Now, in making choices, now individuals are faced with choice making. Firms are also faced with choice making. Government is also faced with choice making. Now we need to decide for firms in particular what to produce, how to produce, the method of production, how much to produce, how many quantities of the commodity we need to produce, as well as For whom to produce? Who do we produce for? These are all decisions that have to be made. So viewers, all too soon, our first lesson on the definition and scope of economics has come to an end. So in summary, we have learned that economics is a science which studies human behavior as a relationship between ends and scarce means. Lionel Robbins defined economics that way. Good. And we have also learned again that human beings have ends, which is also called wants, which are numerous or unlimited. You have it, I have it. Firms are also faced with unlimited wants. Governments are also faced with unlimited wants. And lastly, we studied that society is faced with the fundamental problem of scarcity of resources. I hope you've enjoyed the lesson. Come with me next time as we look at other introductory concepts to further our lesson. So this is how far we've come with our lesson. Good. So until we meet again, stay tuned to Senior Teleclass on Tech TV, because this is where you can find everything educative. Have a nice day.